The first time she came, the village of Dalen's Reach didn't know what to make of her. She appeared in the sky one quiet evening, descending in a silver craft that shimmered under the setting sun. It wasn't like anything they had seen before. The metal gleamed like liquid, and strange lights danced across its surface. People froze, staring, unsure if it was a miracle or a curse. Then she stepped out. The villagers gasped. Her skin was pale with a soft silver glow, and her eyes were large, dark, and haunting. They seemed to see right through you, and for the first time the villagers felt small, weak, and exposed. Her limbs were longer than human arms, her fingers delicate yet strong. She moved with a quiet grace, almost like she was floating. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She only watched. Children screamed and ran, clutching their parents' hands. Farmers abandoned their work and hid in their barns. Even the town guards, brave men who had faced wolves and storms, stayed back, unsure of what to do. Whispers spread through the village. It's a monster. It will take our children. We should drive it away before it's too late. Fear had gripped their hearts, and it was stronger than curiosity. But Jonas was different. He was young, quiet, and often felt out of place in the small village. While others looked at her with fear, he looked at her with something else. Curiosity, empathy, and an ache in his chest he couldn't explain. There was something lonely in her eyes, something that made his own loneliness feel less sharp. He noticed the small details, the way her hands hovered over the ground, the soft tilt of her head and the quiet sadness in her gaze. That night, while the villagers slept, Jonas couldn't stop thinking about her. He felt a pull he didn't understand. Quietly, he grabbed a piece of bread from his house and a small jug of water. Stepping outside into the cool night, he walked toward the edge of the forest where he had seen her standing for hours, silent and still. He set the food and water down carefully, not wanting to scare her. Then he stepped back and waited. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly she approached. Her movements were careful, almost cautious, but graceful. She looked at the food, touched it with delicate fingers, and then raised her eyes to him. Jonas felt a shock run through him. She wasn't attacking. She wasn't dangerous. She was hungry and she was alone. Jonas swallowed, his throat dry. He wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, he simply nodded toward the bread, a silent invitation. For the first time, she responded. A soft, almost imperceptible smile crossed her lips, and she touched his hand briefly. It was a simple gesture, but in that moment it said more than words could ever express. The night felt alive around them. The stars sparkled above, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Jonas realized she wasn't a monster. She was something else, something different, yes, but not evil. She was vulnerable, like he sometimes felt, and she needed kindness, not fear. By the time Jonas returned to his small home, he knew he couldn't stay away. Something had awakened inside him, an urge to help, to protect, to understand. The villagers might call her a monster, but he knew better. Somewhere deep in his heart, he understood that this strange, silver-skinned woman had come into their lives for a reason, and he was going to be the one to find out why. By morning, the whole village knew she was still there. The silver woman had not left. Children whispered about her in hushed voices, and even the bravest adults could not hide their fear. The villagers called a meeting in the center of town. Farmers, merchants, and the town guards gathered, their faces tight with worry. Jonas stood quietly at the edge, clutching his coat, unsure if he should speak. "She's dangerous," one man shouted. "We don't know what she wants. She doesn't speak. She doesn't belong here. She will take our children, mark my words," another woman cried. The fear spread like wildfire. No one noticed Jonas raising his hand. His heart pounded, but his voice faltered. "She isn't dangerous," he said softly. "I saw her last night. She only wants food. She's scared, that's all." Laughter and murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd. "Scared? Scared of what?" The town guard sneered. "She is not like us. She is a monster." Jonas's chest tightened. He wanted to shout louder, to make them see, but the words felt small against the wave of fear. No one listened. They had already decided in their hearts what she was, a threat to their safety, a shadow over their lives. That night, Jonas could not sleep. His mind kept drifting to the forest, to the silver woman. She had been waiting for him again, silent, her dark eyes following every movement he made. He carried food in his hands, a loaf of bread, a little stew he had managed to prepare, and walked quietly into the cool night. She stepped forward as soon as she saw him. There was no hesitation this time. She knelt and touched the bread with trembling fingers, then drank from the water jug with a care that made Jonas's heart ache. She was so fragile, so human in her need, and yet she was called a monster by the very people she did not harm. Jonas sat nearby watching her. For a moment he wished he could take her place in the world, to bear the fear and suspicion so she wouldn't have to. He realized she had already trusted him more than anyone in the village ever would. She had no words, no explanations, only presence, and somehow that was enough to reach him. The next morning, the villagers were even more restless. Rumors had grown. Some claimed she had strange powers. Others swore she had been seen near children, observing them in silence. Fear twisted their minds, making them cruel. "We cannot let her stay," the council declared. "We will drive her away before she causes harm." Jonas felt a surge of anger. "She hasn't harmed anyone," he shouted, but the words were drowned out by the crowd. They turned their backs on him. He realized something bitter. No one would understand, not yet. Not until they saw her actions themselves. That night, Jonas returned to the forest again. The Silver Woman waited as always. She looked at him, and he could see understanding in her eyes, as if she knew he felt the same fear the villagers did. Fear of the unknown, but had chosen courage instead. He handed her the food. She accepted it gently, bowing her head in a gesture that spoke more than words ever could. Jonas sat down on a fallen log and whispered, "I won't let them hurt you, I promise." She tilted her head, and for the first time Jonas felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps she could survive here. Perhaps kindness could win over fear. But deep inside, Jonas knew it would not be easy. Fear was stronger than reason, and the villagers' hearts were clouded by it. Still, he could not turn back now. He had made a choice. He would protect her, feed her, and show everyone the truth about the Silver Woman, even if it meant standing alone. And so, the first small act of trust began. In the silence of the forest, under the cold silver moonlight, days turned into weeks, and Jonas continued to visit the Silver Woman in the forest. He had learned to call her Lyra, a name he had whispered one night when he realized she needed one. She did not speak, but she responded to him in small, quiet ways. She would tilt her head when he spoke, mimic his gestures, and sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, she would touch his hand gently, as if saying, "Thank you." Jonas started bringing more than food. He brought blankets, clothes, and small gifts, things he thought might make her feel safer. Every evening he watched as she explored these offerings with curiosity and careful wonder. Her movements were still otherworldly, but there was a growing softness in her eyes when she looked at him. Slowly a bond formed between them, silent but strong, but not everyone approved. Some villagers caught sight of Jonas leaving the forest at night and whispered among themselves. "He is mad," they said. "He feeds the monster." Fear and suspicion lingered like a shadow over the village, but Jonas did not care. He knew the truth in his heart. Lyra was not a monster. She was misunderstood, and she needed someone to see her for what she truly was. One evening, as Jonas carried food through the forest, a low growl startled him. From behind a cluster of trees, a wolf lunged toward him, eyes gleaming and teeth bared. He froze, fear gripping him, realizing he could not outrun it, but Lyra was faster. In a blur of silver light, she leapt between Jonas and the wolf. Her movements were fluid and precise, almost like water flowing around rocks. With a swift motion, she drove the wolf back, her strength shocking Jonas. The wolf yelped and ran, and Lyra turned to him, unscathed, her dark eyes calm but fierce. Jonas's heart pounded in disbelief. She could have hurt him if she wanted to, but she only protected him. He realized then that she could do much more than survive. She could protect others. She could change the village's fear into awe if they ever saw her in action. From that night, Jonas began to see Lyra differently too. She was no longer just a creature he fed. She was a being of courage, intelligence, and quiet strength, and though she did not speak, he understood her in ways that words could not capture. Jonas wanted to help her integrate into the village, to show them that she was not their enemy. But he knew it would take time. The villagers' fear was deeply rooted, and their suspicion ran deep. He thought about how easy it would be to give up, to let Lyra stay hidden in the forest forever. But then he looked at her eyes shining in the moonlight and felt a surge of determination. He could not abandon her. Night after night he returned with food, warmth, and stories. He told her about the stars, about the village, about humans, the strange creatures who feared what they did not understand. Lyra listened, tilting her head, sometimes touching his hand to comfort him when he spoke about loneliness or fear. Jonas realized something incredible. Trust could be stronger than fear. One act of kindness, one loaf of bread, one simple gesture could begin to change everything. And perhaps if he could help Lyra show the villagers her heart, they too could learn what he had already discovered. She was not a monster. She was something extraordinary, a friend, a protector, and maybe, just maybe, a reminder of humanity in ways they had forgotten. And so the first step was taken. Jonas knew the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time he felt hope. Hope that fear could be overcome, and that a bond built on trust, care, and courage could change not just Lyra's life, but the lives of everyone in the village. The village of Dalen's Reach had been restless for weeks. Fear still hung in the air, but whispers of the Silver Woman, Lyra as Jonas called her, were slowly changing. Some villagers had caught glimpses of her in the forest, helping lost children or carrying heavy logs, but most still stayed away, unsure if they could trust what their eyes saw. One scorching afternoon, the village faced its greatest challenge yet. A fire broke out in the wheat fields. The dry grass ignited quickly, flames roaring into the sky. Smoke filled the air, and villagers ran in panic, trying to save their homes and livestock. The fire spread fast, and even the guards were overwhelmed. Fear clawed at everyone's hearts. Jonas didn't hesitate. He ran toward the chaos, calling out, "We need help! Lyra can help us!" The villagers stopped in shock. Some shook their heads, refusing to believe him. "No, Jonas, stay away. You'll be burned," they shouted. But Jonas was already in the forest, calling her name. From the shadows, Lyra emerged. Her silver skin glowed even in the smoke, and her dark eyes were focused and calm. Without a word, she sprang into action. She lifted heavy, fallen beams, blocking escape paths, moving faster than anyone could follow. She carried terrified children away from the flames, shielding them with her body when sparks rained down. Even the farmers who had spent years battling storms and wolves could not believe what they were seeing. Jonas ran beside her, shouting instructions to the panicked villagers. He watched as Lyra moved effortlessly, her strength and speed astonishing. Every action was precise, deliberate, and caring. She did not strike at anyone, nor did she show aggression. She only saved. The villagers could no longer deny it. The monster they feared was risking herself to protect them. Slowly, they began to join her, carrying water, helping the injured, and guiding the trapped animals to safety. Fear turned into awe. Whispers of amazement spread. She's saving us," one woman said, tears streaming down her face. "She isn't here to harm us." By the time the fire was under control, every person in the village was safe. Some barns were lost, but lives had been preserved. Jonas stood with Lyra, exhausted but grateful. The villagers gathered around, silent, their eyes wide with disbelief. Old Mara, the village healer, stepped forward, shaking her head. "We were wrong," she whispered, almost to herself. "She is not a monster." For the first time, the village saw Lyra for what she truly was. Not a creature to fear, but a protector, a friend, and something more human than many of them could understand. Jonas felt a swell of pride and relief. He had known all along that she was extraordinary, but now others could see it too. That night, the village held a small gathering. Candles flickered in the windows, and people spoke softly, sharing stories of what they had seen. Children played near Lyra, laughing, no longer afraid. Adults approached her cautiously, offering thanks, small gifts, and gestures of acceptance. Jonas sat beside her quietly, watching her respond to each interaction. She did not speak, but her eyes glimmered with something new, understanding, trust, and perhaps even joy. She had not only saved the village physically, but had begun to save their hearts from fear as well. As the stars appeared above Dalen's Reach, Jonas realized something important. Fear could be defeated by courage. Misunderstanding could be healed by patience. And kindness, even something as simple as feeding her day after day, could change the world in ways no one expected. Lyra was no longer just the Silver Woman in the forest. She was becoming part of their lives, part of their hearts. And for the first time, Jonas felt that maybe, just maybe, the village would finally see what he had always known. She was not a monster. She was a miracle. Weeks passed after the fire, and life in Dalen's Reach began to settle into a new rhythm. The villagers still whispered about Lyra, but the tone had changed. Fear was giving way to curiosity, and curiosity was slowly turning into respect. She had saved their lives, and that could not be ignored. Jonas continued to visit her in the forest every day. He brought food, water, and small gifts, but now he also brought stories. He told her about the village, about the seasons, about humans, the strange creatures who sometimes feared the unknown but who could also care deeply for one another. Lyra listened, tilting her head, touching his hand lightly as if to say she understood. Some villagers had begun to follow Jonas quietly. At first they hid behind trees or peered from a distance, unsure of what to expect. They saw Lyra helping the injured, carrying heavy logs and gently guiding lost children back to their parents. Slowly, the villagers realized that Jonas had been right all along. She was not a threat. She was a friend. The children were the first to embrace her fully. They ran to her in the fields, laughing and shouting her name. Lyra knelt to their level, letting them climb on her back and hold her hands. Her silver skin shimmered in the sunlight, but the children saw only kindness and warmth. Their laughter was a bridge between fear and understanding, and even the adults began to feel its pull. Jonas watched quietly as the village began to accept her. He felt a deep pride in what they had accomplished, not through words but through actions. Lyra had not only shown them her strength, she had shown them her heart. And that heart was full of courage, compassion, and quiet wisdom. Even the farmers who had once barred their doors and hidden behind their barns began to seek her help. Lyra learned quickly, mimicking their work, lifting heavy loads and offering advice in ways the villagers could understand. She had no voice, but her actions spoke louder than any words. Jonas noticed something remarkable happening. The villagers who had once feared her began to change as well. They were kinder to each other, more patient with children, and more willing to help neighbors in need. It was as if Lyra's presence had awakened something in them, a reminder that strength and goodness could come in unexpected forms. One evening, as the sun set over Dalen's Reach, Jonas and Lyra sat together at the edge of the forest. The village lay quiet behind them, the warm glow of lanterns lighting the streets. Jonas placed a hand on her shoulder gently, and she responded by leaning closer. He realized that she was no longer just a visitor from another world. She was part of their lives, part of their hearts. Old Mara approached them quietly, holding a small basket of herbs. She smiled softly and said, "I was wrong. We were all wrong. You have shown us what we could not see. You are no monster, Lyra. You are our friend." Lyra touched Mara's hand lightly, and for the first time the healer's eyes filled with tears. Jonas felt a warmth in his chest he had never known before. Months ago the villagers had called her a monster, and yet here she was, accepted and loved by many. It was proof that courage, patience, and kindness could change even the hardest hearts. As night fell, the stars reflected in Lyra's silver skin. Jonas realized that their journey had only just begun. She had become part of the village, yes, but there were still challenges ahead. Fear still lingered in some hearts, and the world outside Dalen's Reach might not understand her as they did. But for now, she was home. She was safe. She was loved. And Jonas knew that together they could face anything. In the quiet of the forest, under the soft glow of the moon, Jonas whispered, "You are one of us, Lyra, and one day, everyone will see what I see." She touched his hand in reply, and in that simple gesture he felt a promise that fear would not last forever, and that love and courage could change everything. Just when the village of Dalen's Reach had begun to feel safe, new danger arrived. One morning, strange men rode into the village on horseback. Their armor gleamed and their eyes were hard and suspicious. They had heard rumors of a dangerous alien living among humans, and they demanded she be handed over. The villagers panicked. Some wanted to hide Lyra. Others feared what might happen if they refused. Jonas stepped forward, placing himself between Lyra and the strangers. "She is not dangerous," he shouted. "She saved our village. She is one of us." The men laughed harshly. "You protect a monster?" One sneered. "We have orders. She must come with us. No excuses." Fear rippled through the villagers, and for a moment Jonas felt his courage falter. But when he saw Lyra standing beside him, calm and unwavering, he drew strength from her. Lyra did not speak, but her presence spoke volumes. She did not attack. She did not strike. She only stood tall and steady, her dark eyes watching every movement of the soldiers. There was a quiet power in her, a strength that went beyond muscle or speed. It was the strength of someone who cared deeply, who would protect those she loved, no matter the cost. The soldiers advanced. Jonas held his ground, shouting to the villagers to stand with him. A few brave farmers joined him, holding tools and sticks. Children huddled behind their parents, eyes wide, watching the confrontation unfold. Then, it happened. One soldier moved too quickly, trying to grab Lyra. In a blur of silver motion, she stepped forward. Her speed and precision were astonishing. She did not hurt him, but she moved with such force and purpose that he stumbled backward, fear flashing in his eyes. The other soldiers hesitated, realizing that she was not a mindless creature. They had underestimated her. Jonas saw the fear in their eyes. Not the fear of being hurt, but the fear of witnessing something they could not control or understand. Lyra's calm, silent confidence made them question everything they believed about monsters and humans, about strength and compassion. The villagers began to speak up. "She saved us," one shouted. "She protected our children," another cried. The words grew louder until the soldiers could no longer ignore them. Lyra had not struck a blow, yet her presence and the villagers' trust in her was enough to change the tide. Slowly, the soldiers withdrew, uncertain and uneasy. Jonas exhaled, relief flooding his chest. The villagers surrounded Lyra, protective and proud. For the first time, the fear that had once gripped Dalen's reach completely disappeared. Not because the danger had vanished, but because they had seen the truth. Lyra was no monster. She was a hero. That night, the village gathered to celebrate quietly. Lyra moved among them, her silver skin reflecting the soft glow of lanterns. Children laughed as they played around her, and adults approached her offering food and thanks. Jonas stood nearby, heart full, watching her slowly become part of the village in ways that fear had once made impossible. Jonas realized something important. Fear could return at any moment. There would always be people who didn't understand, who saw difference and assumed danger. But love, trust, and courage could fight that fear. Lyra had shown them that. She had changed their hearts without saying a word. As the stars appeared over Dalen's reach, Jonas felt a deep sense of pride and hope. They had faced fear together and they had not given in. And Lyra, quiet, calm, and strong, had shown them all what it truly meant to protect, to care and to be human, even without being human at all. For the first time, Jonas felt certain of one thing. No matter what challenges lay ahead, they could face them together. And together they would be unstoppable. Days passed after the soldiers left, and Dalen's reach began to change in ways no one could have imagined. The fear that had once filled the villagers' hearts was gone, replaced by respect, curiosity, and even admiration. Lyra, the silver-skinned woman they had once called a monster, had become part of their lives, and her presence was a quiet reminder of courage and kindness. Jonas walked through the village beside her, carrying a basket of food. Children ran ahead, laughing, shouting her name. Adults followed, offering smiles and gestures of gratitude. Even the elders, who had been the most wary, nodded in respect as she passed. Lyra did not speak, but her dark eyes glimmered with a gentle warmth. Every movement she made showed patience, strength, and understanding. She had become not just a friend, but a teacher, teaching the villagers that fear could be defeated by trust and compassion. That evening, the villagers held a feast in her honor. Long tables were set with food, and lanterns cast a warm glow over everyone gathered. Jonas sat beside her, watching as she moved among the villagers, helping a child here, offering guidance there. No one whispered monster anymore. Instead, they spoke in hushed, respectful tones, marveling at the quiet power and gentleness she carried. Old Mara approached Jonas and Lyra together, holding a small bundle of herbs. She looked at Lyra and whispered, "You have shown us more than we could ever imagine. You are brave, you are kind, and you are part of our village now." Lyra reached out and touched Mara's hand softly. It was a gesture full of trust and understanding, a wordless promise that she would continue to care for them all. Jonas felt tears prick his eyes. He thought back to the first night he had left bread and water for her in the forest. Back then, no one believed him. Everyone had called her a monster. And now look at them. Look at what she had done. Not through words, not through fear, not through violence, But through simple acts of courage and kindness, she had changed the hearts of everyone around her. As the feast continued, Jonas stepped aside with Lyra and looked out toward the fields. The stars reflected in her silver skin, twinkling as if celebrating her presence. Jonas placed his hand on hers, and she responded with the softest touch, a silent thank you for all he had done to protect her and trust her from the very beginning. For the first time, Jonas realized that humanity was not defined by appearance, by strength, or even by the ability to speak. Humanity was in the heart, the courage to care for others, the patience to teach, the bravery to stand against fear. Lyra, though not human, had shown them all what it truly meant to be human. The village of Dalen's Reach slept peacefully that night, with children dreaming of silver skies and brave friends. Jonas stayed by Lyra's side, knowing that whatever challenges the world might bring, they could face them together. And in the quiet of the forest, under the glow of the moon, Jonas whispered, "You are one of us. Lyra, always." She looked at him, her eyes shining with trust and a hint of a smile. She had come to them as a stranger, feared and misunderstood. But now she was a hero, a friend, and a shining example of hope. From that day on, the villagers remembered her story, not as a tale of fear, but as a story of courage, kindness, and the power of seeing beyond appearances. They had called her a monster once, but she had shown them that true strength lies in the heart. And in that quiet village, beneath the stars, humanity shone brighter than ever, through the actions of a silver-skinned woman who had changed everything.